let me ask you something real quick. When is the last time someone in your family called you, not to check on you, not to say they were thinking about you, but because they needed something? Be honest with yourself right now. If your answer was, pretty recently, I want you to keep watching. Because there is a pattern that millions of Americans are living inside of right now, and most of them do not even have a name for it. You are not just helpful. You have been taxed. And nobody told you that you signed up for it. Welcome back. Today we are talking about something that does not get nearly enough airtime, what I call the helper tax. It is the invisible price that the most capable, most responsible person in every family pays. Not in money. In time, in energy, in peace of mind, and eventually in health. And here is the part nobody talks about. The moment you stop paying that tax, the people who are collecting it will act like you are the one who did something wrong. We are going to break down exactly how this happens, why it keeps going, what it costs you, and what your life looks like on the other side when you finally say enough. Let's get into it. How you got elected to a job you never applied for. Nobody sits you down one day and says, "Hey, we have decided you are the family's emergency contact, errand runner, form filler, appointment driver, and emotional shock absorber. Congratulations. The pay is zero. The hours are whenever we need you." It does not work like that. It creeps. It starts small. You are good in a crisis, so people come to you in a crisis. You know how to fill out paperwork, so you fill out the paperwork. You do not complain, so nobody thinks you mind. You show up, so people expect you to show up. And one day you look up and realize you have a second job, except this job has no contract, no benefits, no sick days, and no resignation letter option. Because the moment you try to step back, suddenly you are the selfish one. Sound familiar? There is actually a psychological name for how this happens. Researchers call it the competence penalty. Studies show that the more capable you appear, the more tasks get assigned to you, not because you volunteered, but because the people around you subconsciously offload to whoever they believe can handle it. And the people who handle it without complaining, they get the most. Think about your own situation right now. Who do people call when there is a problem in your family? Who knows where the important documents are? Who remembers the appointments, the deadlines, the details? Who drove somebody to the doctor last month? I am going to guess it was you. And I want you to ask yourself one honest question. When you were the one who needed something last, I mean genuinely needed something, who showed up for you? Take a second with that. Here is what happens in most families. The capable person gets called on constantly, handles everything smoothly, and never makes a scene about it. So the family builds their entire infrastructure around that person's willingness to keep giving. They do not mean to be cruel. Most of the time they are not even conscious of it. But unconscious or not, the drain is real. You wake up one day exhausted in ways you cannot explain. You are not sad exactly. You are not angry exactly. You are just hollow. Like a phone that has been charging everyone else's devices and nobody noticed yours was at 3%. That is the helper tax. And you have been paying it for years. The silence that keeps it running here is where it gets complicated. Because if you are the helper type, there is a very good chance you have never actually told anyone how much you are doing. You just did it. You figured it out. You handled it. And that silence, your silence, is the fuel that keeps the whole machine running. Why do you stay quiet? A few reasons, and be honest with yourself about which one hits closest to home. Reason 1, it feels easier than the conflict. Saying yes takes 30 seconds. Saying no takes a 30-minute conversation where you end up feeling guilty anyway. So you just say yes. Every time. Because the math feels simpler even though it is not. Reason 2, you tied your worth to your usefulness. This one is hard to hear, but stay with me. A lot of people who become the family helper have a deep, quiet belief that love is something you earn by being useful. That if you stop doing, you will stop mattering. So you keep doing. Not just for them, for yourself. Because stopping feels like proof that you are not enough. Reason 3, you genuinely love these people. This is the most painful one. You are not a pushover. You are not oblivious. You love your family. You love them enough to drive them to appointments and fill out their forms and rearrange your schedule and bite your tongue when they forget to say thank you. Love is not the problem. The problem is that love without limits is not generosity. It is slow self-erasure. Now here is the pattern interrupt I want you to sit with. The people collecting the helper tax, your family members, sometimes your friends, they are not sitting around thinking about how much you give. They are just living their lives, assuming you will continue to handle things, because you always have. They are not calculating what they take from you. But you are not calculating it either. And that is the problem. Let me give you a real-world example. Say you have a sibling who calls you every time they have a conflict at work, a parenting problem, a money question, a car issue. Every single time. And you listen, you advise, you help. For years. Now flip it. The one time something actually hard happens to you, job loss, health scare, real crisis, how fast do they pick up the phone? How long do they stay on the call? How much do they actually do? If there is a gap between what you give and what comes back, that gap has a name. It is not a coincidence. It is a pattern. And patterns do not fix themselves. They just continue until something forces them to stop. Usually that something is you. At some point, every helper reaches a limit. Maybe it is a health crisis. Maybe it is burnout so bad you cannot get out of bed. Maybe it is a quiet Tuesday when you just decide you are done. However it happens, eventually you stop. And this is the part one really need you to hear, because it is going to feel personal when it happens to you. The moment you stop, you become the villain. It does not matter how long you gave. It does not matter what they did or did not do for you. The second you are no longer available, the family narrative flips. Suddenly you are selfish. Suddenly you are dramatic. Suddenly you are making everything about yourself. The person who drove to 40 appointments and got nothing in return is now the bad guy for not answering a text. Why does this happen? Because when you pull back, you expose something nobody wanted to look at. You expose how much they were depending on you and how little they were contributing. Your absence holds up a mirror, and the reflection is uncomfortable. So instead of sitting with that discomfort, people attack the mirror. This is one of the most predictable things in family dynamics. Therapists see it constantly. The helper finally sets a limit, and the family response is outrage, not gratitude that you gave for so long, not guilt, not acknowledgement. Outrage. Because you disrupted the system. And here is what makes it even harder. They will not just be upset privately. They will talk. They will recruit. Suddenly cousins you have not spoken to in years are texting you. Your parents' friends are giving you the cold shoulder at church. The story being told about you in group chats and Sunday dinners is that you changed, you got difficult, you turned your back on family. What you actually did was stop volunteering for a job that was never fair to begin with. But that version of events is much less comfortable for the people who benefited. Now let me talk about something specific, because I think a lot of people need to hear this. When you pull back from being the helper, things will fall apart for a while. That is not your fault. That is just the natural result of a system losing a resource it had been abusing. Mom will miss a doctor's appointment. Dad will not know how to handle the paperwork. Your sibling will pay more than they expected for something you were doing for free. And your instinct, if you are a true helper, will be to jump back in and fix it. Do not. Not out of cruelty. Not to make a point. But because those consequences are theirs to manage. They are adults. They lived before you started helping them, and they can figure it out again. Every time you rescue them from the consequences of not having you, you teach them that your limits are not real. That if they just wait a little, you will fold. The system does not break when you pull back. The system adjusts. And the adjustment, as uncomfortable as it is the most honest thing that has happened in your family in years. Okay. So we have talked about how you became the helper, why you stayed quiet, and what happens when you stop. Now let's talk about the part that actually matters. What does the other side look like? And how do you get there without blowing up your entire life? I want you to literally sit down and add it up. Not to be dramatic. Not to feel sorry for yourself. But because when you see the actual numbers, something shifts. You stop feeling like you are overreacting and you start seeing the situation clearly. How many hours per month are you spending on other people's problems, appointments, tasks, crises? What would that time be worth at your actual hourly rate? What are you not doing for yourself because you are doing it for them? Write it down. Real numbers. Real hours. Real dates. This is not about building a case to punish anyone. It is about getting honest with yourself so you cannot minimize it later when the guilt kicks in. This is not all or nothing. You do not have to cut everyone off to have a healthy family life. But you do need to decide, before the next request comes in, what you are actually willing to give and what you are not. Willing to help with a genuine emergency. Define what genuine means to you. Willing to help with recurring tasks. Decide how often and under what conditions. Willing to be the emotional support person. That is fine, but is it mutual? Does it go both ways? Get specific. Because, I need to set better limits, is too vague to survive the moment someone calls you crying. You do not owe anyone a long explanation. You do not need to justify yourself with a list of everything you have done. You can simply say, I am not able to keep doing this. Going forward, I will not be available for X, that is it. You do not need them to agree. You do not need their blessing. You do not need the conversation to end on good terms for the boundary to be real. A lot of people think a boundary is something you negotiate with the other person. It is not. A boundary is something you set and then enforce through your own behavior. They do not have to like it. They just have to live with it. When you set a real limit for the first time, the people around you will test it. They will call more, not less. They will escalate. They will say things designed to make you feel guilty, selfish, or crazy. That is not proof that you are wrong. That is proof that the limit is working. Stay consistent. Silence is sometimes the most powerful response. You do not have to defend every choice. You do not have to explain yourself every time someone pushes back. This is the part people skip, and it is the most important. When you stop putting all your energy into one-sided family dynamics, you have capacity for something else. Real friendships. Relationships where people check on you, not just call you for help. Community. People who show up when you are the one in the hospital bed. Those relationships exist. But you have been too depleted to find them because you were giving everything to people who treated your reliability like a utility bill. Here is the thing about being the helper. The trait itself is not the problem. Caring about people, showing up, being capable, that is not a flaw. That is a gift. The problem is when that gift gets extracted from you without your consent, without gratitude, without reciprocity. When you redirect it toward people who actually value it, everything changes. You are not becoming a different person when you stop being everyone's safety net. You are just finally becoming your own. And that is not selfish. That is survival. If this hit home today, I want you to do one thing before you close this video. Think of one thing you have been doing for someone in your life that they could do for themselves, and decide right now that next time they ask, you are going to let them handle it. Just one thing. That is where it starts. If this is your story too, drop a comment. Tell me, are you the helper in your family? How long have you been paying the tax? And if someone in your life needs to hear this today, share it with them. Sometimes the person who needs permission to stop is just waiting for someone to say it is okay. Subscribe if you have not yet. New video dropping next week. I will see you there.